As the largest employer in the city of Spokane, the economic impact of Spokane Public Schools on the community is significant. Welcome to School Talk. I'm Taryn Roloff, and joining us today are Rich Hadley, President and CEO of Greater Spokane Incorporated, Grant Forsyth, Professor of Economics at Eastern Washington University, and Dr. Nancy Stowell, Superintendent of Spokane Public Schools.
Hi, Taryn.
Hello, and welcome to all of you. Dr. Stowell, maybe you could set the stage about this discussion on the economic impact by describing the size of our district.
Well, what I can say is, as the largest employer, that means we have about 3,200, a little more than that, staff in the district, and about 29,000 students. We're the second largest district in the state of Washington. Over 50 schools that we serve in the community, and our geographic boundaries are about what the city is, although we go into the county in a couple of cases. But as I've been out doing presentations about the levy that's coming up on February 14th, the replacement levy, I've talked about the fact that our size does have an impact locally on the economy. Our responsibility or our work is around the educational impact we have on children, but there is also that consideration of the fact we do impact the local economy by sheer size. So,
and we want to hear about that before we go there. So when you say 3,200, that's full-time equivalents, I believe.
Right.
We actually have more.
We have more staff than that because we have lots of part-time staff. So.
All right. Okay. Great. So Grant, our district's budget this year is over $300 million. So what does that say in terms of the larger area and the impact again on the community?
Probably the best way to look at this is to look at the employment impact, which is what economists tend to focus on. And so if you look at Spokane County as a whole, education all the way through university accounts for about 8% of the non-farm employment. So it's about 8% of total employment. If you just look at the K through 12 component in the county, that by itself accounts for almost 6% of employment. And not only is the school system a major employer, it also pays very solid middle-class wages. The typical wage in the county for somebody teaching in the K through 12 system is probably, the average wage is about $58,000 a year, and that includes, pretty good health benefits as well. Whereas the average wage for a job in the county overall is about $42,000 a year. So there's a significant employment, wage, and benefit impact that comes from the public school system. And oddly enough, there's been another big impact that the school system has had over the last 3 or 4 years, and that is it has been an important contributor to the construction industry. We've had a lot of renewal and reconstruction of schools in the region, and that's been a big boost to our construction industry that's really been hit hard by this recession.
And maybe, Rich, maybe you can go there with that, because I think construction is a huge part of many employers' services here in Spokane.
Well, I think the K-12 and university building construction has really been a huge plus in the last 5 years. We've been quite successful, both the district passing a bond election for buildings, which has been tremendous because that was passed when the economy was better and the buildings are being built while the economy hasn't been as good. And similarly, some of the higher ed buildings are also coming in online during this time. And not only does that keep architects and engineers and construction companies busy, but all of those companies, their employees, and some of the suppliers and services that they depend upon also then are supported in the process of it. So it's very substantial. And sort of following up on some of what Grant talked about, if you look at my calculation on public education, K-12 education countywide, the aggregate of all of the operating budgets is somewhere in the neighborhood of $750 million a year. And if you add in the construction that we've just talked about and some of the bonding expenses, it's $850 million a year. So that is a huge economic boost to the economy, about $1 billion. I mean, it's not too far off from that. And I think countywide employment, as Grant said, around 6%. But as I looked at the full-time equivalent employment in the county in just public K-12, 7,500 jobs. So it is a big employer and a good employer, as Grant described.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because the jobs that people have in education with the benefits, it's a living wage job, you can support a family, and in addition to that, you're giving back to the community and living here and spending money here and buying cars here and buying homes here and all those things that drive then that economic progress that we ultimately need.
Well, and I'd say on economic progress, I think there's another way of looking at this, which is what good public schools are important to community vitality. I mean, they just are. And as an organization, we recruit companies to this community, and obviously we support existing companies that are expanding. But when we have a company looking at us from the outside, let's take Caterpillar. We recently recruited. Right. One of the questions they asked was, tell us about the quality of your public schools. And whether that's Caterpillar or whether it is someone we're inviting to come to this community to do research associated with the new medical school, they're going to ask that same question. They're looking at neighborhoods and what kind of schools are in those neighborhoods. So schools are at the top of the list. And that old thing about location, 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 it's really workforce and education. Where are the schools and what do we have as higher ed assets? And I think that's part of the culture that's expected in a community that's progressive, and that's what we want as our culture.
Because as a city, we want to be able to compete against all those other cities who are also trying to make sure they have a good educational foundation with their K-12 system and higher ed. We seem to be a bit unique, though, it seems to me, with the percentage of the population that is employed either in K-12 or in higher ed. That seems to be, would that be a large percentage for a community?
Actually, if you look at the state, we're pretty much in line with the state.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, though, is if you look at other counties that are not urban counties, you can see how really important it becomes. I looked at Stevens County just by comparison, and in Stevens County, about 13% of employment is attached to K through 12. And so as you go regionally, if you look at the more rural areas, K through 12 becomes even more important as an economic base.
And it does. And we have, in fact, some of the K-12 school systems in our county have rural characteristics to them where that is very evident. And on the higher ed side, Nancy, you brought that up. From where we're filming this, if you go 90 minutes in any given direction and aggregate, we have 73,000 undergraduate and graduate students in higher education. Some of those are in Idaho, so they wouldn't show up in the numbers that Grant was talking about. We are a major education center, and it's one of the reasons why, along with the diversified economy, that we have so much potential as we go forward as a region.
So great, or go ahead.
I was just going to say, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that, because certainly where we're headed with the medical center and some of those decisions that are being made will influence this community forever, and certainly has a huge impact on education and what we need to be doing.
Well, it does, and it also increases the expectation of the K-12 system, because we are recruiting companies that are value-add companies, pay higher wages, are in innovation, manufacturing, aerospace, medicine, and so in our K-12 system, we need to be strong, and we need to support the schools, and we need to have programs that are supported, frankly, by M&O levies, which are areas, things like the robotics programs, the innovation programs, the STEM-related activities, and some of the extracurricular activities that are in sciences and in other subjects, whether that's history or math or education. But I mean, all of that is really, really important as we make our economy a more intellectual and value-add economy.
And for Spokane, with us, it's nearly a quarter of our budget, the levy that you were just referring to.
Yeah, and it really is critical for us to be able to maintain those programs, which are largely funded out of the levy. We don't get state funding for robotics and some of the STEM work that we're doing. It comes, or the small classes when we want to offer second-year physics and advanced math classes, world languages. We want to offer a class of 18 because you've got 18 kids who need that. That's not those aren't funded out of the state. Our community then supports that through that local levy. So those are the things that become at risk when you have levies on ballots and citizens making decisions about the future. So it's much bigger than just the future of what happens in Spokane Public Schools. I think you're talking about the bigger impact on the community, the greater impact on the community for sure.
Well, I think too, as we begin to develop things like the medical school, and we begin to maybe expand some of our other university capacity, it's going to be important that the K through 12 system is communicating with the higher education system, so that really we're all on the same page. You know, I'm a college professor, and one of the things I'm concerned about is that there isn't very good cooperation and coordination. And so what's happening at the K through 12 level, we don't really know. And so there might be a kind of a disconnect between the two. And so down the road, one thing that may help growth and employment is better coordination between the two systems.
So it's more of that seamless look at K-20 and how we...
Yes, exactly. Instead of compartmentalizing, you know, this is K through 12 and this is the university system and they're separate, I'm beginning to realize we need to see it as a continuous process.
And there are some really, really good examples of the steps being taken to do that. The River Point Math and Science Partnership, which is 5 of the school districts, the community college, and Eastern and WSU is an example. And then I think that all of our collaboration in this region around science, technology, and education and math through Washington STEM, and our pursuit of Spokane STEM Learning Network are ways that I think will begin to show much more of the relationship and integration that K-12 education has with higher education.
And certainly in this community, I think we all know each other. The college presidents, the community leaders come together on a regular basis. So if anybody can do that, I think it can be done in Spokane. I think we have that opportunity to.
And both of your entities really have stepped up to encourage collaboration. GSI has a K-12 roundtable, and which is focused just on that very thing. And tell us a little bit more about some of the other things that GSI is doing. I know you've taken a real stand on the levies.
Yes, we have a K-12 roundtable. We have industry groups in manufacturing, aerospace, healthcare, by the way, that are all committed to the M&O levy support and are very energetic in that. We have a higher education leadership group, which is the 5 college presidents in business, and the university presidents are speaking at forums to also give support to the sort of role of education from kindergarten all the way through graduate level programs. So we have certainly many things going on in our organization. We work teaching the teacher programs, career awareness, career exploration, the robotics program we're part of, and as well as the STEM initiatives.
I think we're very fortunate in this community to have that kind of support and that collaboration. And I think, like you said, we can be very siloed in our look at our work. K-12, higher ed, business community. And one of the things that I found in the last few years is there really is an interest, a sincere interest on the part of people to leverage those partnerships, to work together. And ultimately, the community benefits, our kids benefit if we could get some WASDEM money and really do some intentional focus around that preparation in math, science, engineering, technology. Our kids benefit, the universities, and ultimately this community. So that's pretty powerful work that is ahead of us, I think.
It really is, and I think it really does come back to why does Greater Spokane Incorporated support the M&O levies? It's partly because for everything that Nancy just said is at risk if we don't continue to gain public support for the 25 to 28% of the budget that comes from the local community through M&O levies. And so that's why we're so active and energized around helping the public understand that for the benefit of the Spokane Public Schools, but also all the K-12 school systems in Spokane County.
Well, thank you very much. We actually just have a few seconds left, so Grant, I want to give you a chance too. If there's another statistic you'd like to throw out there after all your research on this topic.
Well, just a couple of quick things. First off, the data is clear about if you don't have a good education, you have a high chance of ending in poverty, especially if you don't complete high school. The unemployment rate for people who have less than a high school diploma is almost 14%. Okay? If you don't complete high school, compared to somebody who does, you're going to make almost $180 less a week than the person who does complete high school. And so not getting a good education and not having access to a good education is really going to commit a lot of people to a lifetime of economic hardship. And so, that's one of the things I want people to sort of take away is that education does matter. It does have a significant long-run economic impact in people's standard of living.
And in Spokane, on Spokane's economic.
Yeah, exactly. As the region, the state, and even broader. The other thing, just quickly, a lot of people don't realize how many social welfare services are now being connected through the school system. So increasingly for a lot of kids, it's where they get their square meals during the day. It's where somebody recognizes they might have health care issues that need to be resolved. And they also get counseling services. And so the role that schools play has greatly broadened, and I don't think a lot of people recognize that.
That's true. That's very true. Well, we appreciate certainly the support that Greater Spokane Incorporated has provided for not just Spokane Public Schools, but the area districts. Mr. Hadley, that's been wonderful. And we continue to have a strong collaboration with Eastern Washington University and appreciate your analysis of the numbers because it helps us understand even more the value of education in our community.
Very good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of School Talk.